lost my button. Go get my button.
All right, hello, Pulsers, and welcome back for episode 70, the big 70. How's it going today, Al?
Oh, not bad, man. Not bad. Welcome back. I hope you had a good trip to Japan.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
ate
wife
all
and I
the.
had a great trip. Great trip.
Yeah, all right.
It was a
Yeah,
good time.
ate a whole bunch of food. I bet, and like, yeah, good for you, man.
Dude, we dove in deep, and anyone listening, I definitely recommend the trip. It is very eye-opening to be able to see that kind of culture, those people, all of that. It was I don't know, it made me feel very thankful and full of gratitude.
Yeah,
Um, to be able to go there and spend some time. So got a little bit of a funny story if you want to hear it.
yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So they're known for their metro system, right? Their subway system is incredible.
Sure.
Actually, the way it was designed was by a scientist with using bacteria to see how bacteria would move the most efficient way and spread the most efficient way, and that's how they designed it based in Tokyo.
That's
But
incredible. I
yeah,
actually didn't know that.
it's pretty incredible to see. So one of the things that they have as part of their metro, which works very well, it's very easy as someone that's an English speaker to be able to move around seamlessly and get from stop to stop and all of that stuff on time, always up to date, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. Anyhow, uh, we were rushing one night to try to get on the train, and when I mean rushing, like walking faster than normal. You don't run in the subways there. You don't do that. But we go and we get on the subway, and we're like, whew, we made it on. We had to go like, I don't know, 8 stops to our destination, and to get off and walk to our hotel. So we're on there, and I hop in the cart and I say to my wife, like, man, like, I go, there's a lot of there's a lot of women on this cart. I go, I see like two guys down the way and stuff, but I'm like, man, there's a lot of women on this cart. And I didn't really think anything of it, but we're going. We go to another
Yeah,
stop, and all of a sudden, these women start to, like, a few of them start to look at me, and I'm like, oh, they must be interested or whatever, because I'm very tall compared to the rest of the people there.
yeah. No, I figured. Yeah,
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 so it's kind of interesting to experience that. But I said something to my wife, like, these women keep looking at me, and like women getting onto the cart at the next stop are kind of looking. This went on for like probably 3-4 stops,
sure.
and at I go and I went to grab like one of the handles to secure myself, because the metro moves kind of fast there. So I
Hmm.
go and I grab the handle and stuff, and I noticed there was like this pink band that goes up on it and connects to the bar. And it was at that point that I realized, as I looked through the rest of the cart, that the two people that I thought were men there were not actually men. They had their
Sure.
backs turned to me. They were women.
Hmm.
And this was a women only cart on the metro. So I like said something to my wife about it, and she's like, "Oh, we only have 2.5 more stops until we're off. Like, don't worry about it." I'll tell you, man, that was the longest 2.5 stops I've
Sure.
I've had, where I felt like I had done an unspeakable thing. Especially in a country where people are so polite, no one talks on the metro. It's very, very quiet, eerily so. Like you could hear a pin drop. If you're
That's wild.
speaking, yeah, you need to whisper on there. It's not a loud metro either, so it's very, very quiet in there.
Right.
And I was beat red with embarrassment as we got
Oh
off.
man, that's
Um, yeah,
hilarious.
and on the outside, you can see it clearly says on the outside, it's covered in pink, women's only. And I'm
Yeah.
noticing all these signs as we're looking. Oh man, it
And
was a
I'm sure
little
they
embarrassing.
must have been like fucking dumb American, like thinking
Yep,
he like.
yep. They
And they talked
probably,
about it after
yeah.
this
Oh yeah,
very large man got on the train. Yep.
yeah. Very, very large. It was very interesting, but
Love
again,
that for you.
yeah, I definitely. My wife loved it too. She's like, "There's no way you're leaving. No, you're gonna sit through this." So
Yeah.
it was really funny to experience that. But like I said, I recommend it not only for the food, the heated toilet seats, The technology they have there, everything, man. It's just a great place. The history, the culture, you can feel it everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So definitely shout out. And I've noticed it more when you see, we talk about players obviously during baseball season like Shohei Ohtani. I sent you that video the other day of him actually bowing and like tipping his cap to the manager. And people would look at that and kind of chuckle, but that's the way he was brought up,
Yeah.
is to salute, to give that respect, and
Right.
be polite. So there's no question in my mind why he's so well liked by not only Japan but also the Dodgers and their fan base. But I also believe he's very well liked throughout baseball, because
Yeah.
of how he is. And now with Yamamoto there, and now they've got Sasaki.
Yeah. Sasaki. Yeah.
Sasaki coming there as well, who they just signed, and I think they just signed another 6-year-old. The Dodgers
Yeah. Yeah.
did,
That's what they're gonna do next. Yeah.
which is insane. So they've got the market cornered there when it comes to baseball. But really
Yeah.
cool place. Recommend it to you guys. But we were gone last week because obviously we're traveling, so definitely my fault. But we have a little bit to reflect on with the AFC NFC Championship games. So let's go ahead and start. And some of the
Sure.
teams that I did not think were going to be there, right? I picked Detroit and the Rams to be playing, and it was Washington at Philly. So, which turned out to be a fairly good game. It was mostly one-sided, as it
Yeah.
grew later in the game. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that game.
I don't think that this was a talent gap thing. It was more of a Washington had a bunch of turnovers.
Yeah.
They It was the classic Washington was only kicking field goals and Philly was scoring touchdowns. And then it got to a point where they had to start pressing and they just had some turnovers.
Yeah, very uncharacteristic of this Washington team because they've played everybody very tough this year. I know there's Washington fans out there that are probably disappointed with the outcome because they go and they beat Detroit, who they weren't predicted to beat, but they played very
Yeah.
well against them. And then they get into this game that's a divisional matchup where they feel like we could probably hang with this team and beat them. In one game, anything can happen, and it didn't they didn't put their best foot forward in terms of their what they put out there on the field that day. But I think they have a lot to be very happy about, as this team was in the cellar. And to hear, I know you probably heard it too. Dan Snyder is pissed about this.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
I think it is awesome that he's mad about it because he could have had a chance to do this, but
Yeah.
instead he decided to do other things that he and treat people irresponsibly. And now this team ends up in someone's hands who really does care about it. And what they've done is put together a great football team that the city can really be proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, it came down to, like I said, turnovers. Like Washington lost 3 fumbles.
Yeah,
You can't do that against a team like that. You
no.
can't.
And I felt
Like,
for Eckler too when he fumbled that. It just, I mean, I don't know. People want to see that guy fail. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't either. It's weird.
Yeah, he seems like such a great teammate and a great player. He did very well in Los Angeles, and I was glad to see him land in Washington because I knew he would help them. Sad to see him fumble the ball there, but hey, listen, playoff games, stuff like that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Also, you can't give up 229 yards on the ground to Philly.
no, you can't.
You just can't do that.
It's weird because it started off kind of in a heroic S type moment with Barkley at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, he didn't really need to do much in the game. Yeah, he punched in 3 touchdowns, but they didn't really need him to do that. They
Yeah.
had the game pretty well in hand without him doing that. If it wasn't going to be him, Hurts could have gone off for 5 touchdowns this game. Like it, easy.
Him ripping that 60-yarder off in the first quarter, like,
Yeah,
really just kind of set the tone for the entire day.
very
Like,
big deal. Very big deal.
Yeah.
I just you know what's interesting is, and they were able to score a lot of close touchdowns in inside the red zone there.
Yeah.
The Eagles were. And I made note of that to myself. Like, isn't this the difference between the haves and the have-nots? Like you had mentioned, the Commanders had to settle for field goals while the Eagles are scoring touchdowns there. But it brings to mind teams like the Steelers and the Broncos to one, to some extent, right? And
Yeah.
how they go about playing offense. If you aren't able to score touchdowns, it makes things very, very difficult. Uh, very difficult to be able to compete against these teams in the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
um, and I just wanted to shout out Philly. We're going to talk about them a little bit more coming up here in the Super Bowl preview. But their defense, which was really the weak part of their team last year, and the glaring defect, I guess you could say, whether it was the linebackers or the secondary, they did a lot of work in this offseason mending that. Get it,
Yeah, they sure did.
I mean, and you could go look at all three levels, but Zach Bond, for them picking him up from New Orleans, like it was just insane what he was able to do this year for them. They end up revamping the secondary with C.J. Gardner Johnson at safety, and then they bring in and draft Cooper DeJean and then Kenyon Mitchell, which it just for them it made a very noticeable difference in terms of their secondary this year. They were young
Yeah.
at the beginning. They were rookies. They're no longer rookies now. They're playing at a very high level, both of them. Actually, I don't know if you saw it on one of the Instagram reels, but they had Kenyon Mitchell talking to Mike Evans and kind of was like, "Dude, you aren't that good." He's like, "I've been covering you all day. You only got like two catches." Mike Evans is like, "Do you know who I am?" And he's like, "Because I don't know you." It was like it was kind of funny. Like
That's
just
my favorite way to get back at somebody. Is like, I don't even know who you
yeah, I
are.
don't know who you are.
Like,
Yeah,
who?
I have no idea who you are.
I remember Aaron Rodgers did that a couple years ago on Hard Knocks. I think it was against it was a preseason game against the Giants,
Yeah,
and he was like, "I don't even know who you are."
yeah. The
Like,
guy's
and
like,
it's
of
just
course you know who I am.
that's just such a good insult. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I could care less, right?
yeah.
Anything else you wanted to mention about that game?
No, just a heck of a year for Washington.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have nothing to be ashamed about. Like, future is bright in Washington. Like, good for them. Like,
How are your feelings at the head coach position there? You feel like he's well suited to be able to move into a second season?
oh yeah,
Mm,
like I think like that's the thing with Dan Quinn is like he's a good coach. He just like I think what like submarine him in Atlanta was like that Super Bowl, and after that, like the kind of the writing was on the wall, and
yeah.
like yeah, I think he Dan Quinn's talked about it. Like he like went to people after was like, hey, I know the things that I do well as a coach. I need to know the things that I don't do well as a coach.
Yeah.
Like he really took that criticism to heart and like really like worked on that. I think that shows this time around. Like he's doing a better job of relating to players. Like and I yeah, I think that's really awesome.
I'm not a
Yeah,
huge fan of Cliff Kingsbury, but the fact that he was able to they found success this year with him as offensive coordinator, I thought was really a bright spot for him because I didn't care for him as a head coach in Arizona. I just didn't.
I thought he was going to get a head coaching gig this cycle. I really did.
Wow.
The fact that he didn't and he's going to stay in Washington, like that just benefits Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it
Like
really
another
does.
year under the same offensive coordinator. Like,
Not to mention, like, tell me, like, we didn't really know last year. I was a fan of him from the beginning. I know you had your doubts at the beginning about Daniels and stuff, but and rightfully so, right? He's a rookie, but uh he's must watch football next year. I
yeah,
feel like he has to be. Has to
he's
be.
going to get drafted way too high in fantasy,
Yeah,
and like
he will.
he's going to break somebody's heart, and
Yeah,
I'm
he
ready for
definitely
that.
will. All right. So the other AFC Championship game that we had, Buffalo at Kansas City. Anything you wanted
Man,
to mention before we get into this about the Buffalo Baltimore game?
no, just like that game. You could have played that game 10 times, and I think that like that what happened to Baltimore, I don't think would have happened in many of those scenarios.
Okay.
Like they just couldn't hold on to the ball. It was cold weather, and like I'm gonna say a thing. This is why you try to get home field in the playoffs.
Yeah.
was if that Buffalo Baltimore game. It was snowing, it was cold. Buffalo's fans are nuts.
Yeah.
Like, and Baltimore had their chances too. That's the thing. They had their chances. They just couldn't put it together. Like,
One thing that
and
I
this one doesn't fall really on Lamar. I'm gonna say a thing.
no.
Like,
I don't even think it falls on Andrews either. I know he's to blame for because it was the 2 point conversion and all of that, but dude, there was plenty of times during that game that they could have made different play calls,
sure.
different things could have gone differently. Of course, it all falls on the last play, and everyone wants to blame them, but uh, I think it could have ended up very differently, and other people need to take responsibility for that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think Baltimore played a heck of a game. This is why you play those games at home if you can in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
Other thing I wanted to mention, kind of nice about what the Bills fans did for Mark Andrews, because he was getting a lot
Yeah.
of hate and like, uh, basically death threats online after that game, which is just unnecessary. But Bills fans, as they always prove they're the best fans out there, right? They went and donated quite a bit of money to his charity, which I thought is just so classy of Bills fans. Yeah, they're going to show up, they're going to be obnoxious and crazy on game day. I say obnoxious, but like in a good way, right? Like they cheer on their
Yeah.
team, they love their team, they have a lot to be proud of. They're nuts. They throw people through tables, they throw themselves through tables, but when it comes down to it, they put their money where their mouth is too, and they're gonna support a good cause. And I thought that was
Yeah.
just a really great and nice, heartwarming play for them to make after that game.
Yeah, I feel like you read about this like once a season with Buffalo fans where they do this. Like they did it
Yeah.
when Damar Hamlin died on the field. Like they raised a bunch of money for his charity, and like it's just, I don't know, it's cool to see, man.
Well,
Like,
it did come back in the second game, and Kansas City kind of returned the favor to them with Dalton Kincaid. But let's break that down a tiny bit in terms of that. Just because I don't know. Anything else you want to say about Baltimore at all, or
no,
okay?
that's pretty much it. Yeah,
Interesting to see where they're going to go next year because Derrick Henry's 1 year older. He looked really good this year, but hey,
yeah.
like what else can you guys do? Like
Well, Baltimore also has some like kind of weird off the field stuff that they're got to deal with right now. That's like not good, not good. Which
and
we
I
can
don't mean
talk
to,
about
yeah, I don't mean to
on a
laugh about
different
it.
show.
It just
Yeah,
it's
woof.
yeah, it's really sad, and if any of it's true, it's quite disturbing. So,
Yeah,
um yeah.
yeah.
But Buffalo at Kansas City, what were your thoughts on this game?
Buffalo played as well of a game as you could have played, and it's kind of the thing with the Chiefs this year. Is like teams play a really good 55 minutes against them,
Hmm.
but they can never put together 60 minutes. And like things that like Buffalo in the fourth quarter, like they had their foot on the gas and they were trying to go for the kill, which
Yeah.
not a lot of teams do against Kansas City because they get scared and get conservative. And Buffalo had learned that lesson. The problem that I had with Buffalo is they had some fourth down plays that you were just like, that's your best fourth down play.
Yeah.
And also, you got to kind of give some credit on that last fourth down play where Allen kind of heaves it in the air and Kincaid almost catches it. The fact that Steve Spagnuolo dialed up this blitz that nobody had ever seen before, and he's like, you know
Yeah.
what? Now's the time to send a fun corner blitz that I haven't tried in a while. Like
Yeah.
that's what a G. What a G. He's like, you know what? Screw it. I
It's
blitz anyway. Like,
it really is two Super Bowl coaches on the same team. Right,
yeah,
like they both have rings, right? Andy Reid is obviously the more experienced, I believe, right? He's the senior to Steve Spagnuolo, but
yeah,
it just is crazy to see the amount of brilliance from both sides with them.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, and
bizarre.
they just like there were just some weird play calling in that last couple of drives where it was like 3rd and 1 and they ran the Josh Allen play and you're like, man, you didn't get that. Okay, that's kind of weird. And like for them to essentially try the same thing again and then like yeah, it just was I
Yeah.
don't knock them for being aggressive because that's what you have to do. Just wish they had dialed up some better plays. And like,
See, this is the same thing that happens with the Chiefs now because they're the Patriots of this generation now, and I remember I'll never forget it. Baltimore was winning going into the fourth quarter by I think it was 10 points against New
oh,
England.
are you talking about this is the playoff game with
Yep, yep,
the trick plays?
yeah.
Yeah, they were down. New England was down 14 twice in that
14.
game.
Okay.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
the start of the fourth quarter, and I was like, dude, this is how it's going to end. Like, Baltimore is going to beat them, and it did not happen. And I sat there in just like disarray. Like, how is this possible? Because I wanted so badly for New England to not continue on
yeah.
that dynasty run. Uh, it just, it's you can do almost everything right, but Mahomes really knows how to limit mistakes, even with the fumble. Like they still weren't able to, like they got a little bit of a leg up, but you see the way the waves went in this game. Baltimore scores 10 unanswered, then or maybe it was 14 unanswered. Then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, Kansas City scores 14 unanswered, and then Buffalo comes back again. I think I said Baltimore before, but I meant Buffalo, right? Yeah, Buffalo's
Yeah.
going again, and like it looks like they're on the rise and they're going to win the game. And then all of a sudden, Kansas City just gets the stop when they need to and scores again. And you realize, like, man, this is how Kansas City is able to do it. We saw it multiple times this year at the end of games. You know, the blocked punt against Denver when they win by 2 points. Like all they got to do is successfully kick that field goal and the game's over. You know, it just
As somebody that's a Patriots fan and was always aware that we got kind of the benefits on like some like calls every now and again,
yeah.
kind of watching it firsthand with that like third down where like Allen clearly looks like he's over the line and gets and they like spot it short. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, this is what it's like to watch this from the other side. You're like, God damn it.
Yeah.
That's gotta be it because I was frustrated. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? But
Yeah.
like also, I keep saying this, like, this is why you want to try to get home field advantage.
It really is, man. It makes a very big difference.
Yeah,
And this was the year, right? Like I keep saying that, but
supposed to be.
this was the year
Yeah,
because you look at the other teams that are what's going to reload next year. You're going to have to beat Lamar at some point again. If the Chiefs, even if they don't win, you know they're going to be very good, and you're going to have to beat Patrick Mahomes again. I'm guessing the Bengals are going to be better again next year, right?
yeah,
They're going to be back. The Steelers are probably going to be in it at some point. Houston, with all the bevy of injuries that they have, you have to believe they're going to try to reload and make a run at it. Like you've got the Chargers and the Broncos that were there as well. Like it's not like they're gonna get a break, man. It's not gonna be easier for them.
yeah,
It just hopefully they're able to
yeah,
figure it out. But it just shows only one guy, as much as we love all these players, only one team and one quarterback for that team gets to lead them in. Only one team wins every year. And that's it.
yeah. That's the beauty and the heartbreak of it all at the same
Yeah,
time. Like,
it really
and like
is.
it just kind of like Mahomes. And I think what was like what makes Mahomes is like watching. So they're like, so at this point they get the ball back and they're just trying to run out the clock, and they just keep making smart play after smart play, and you're like, oh, this is why they're good. They're well coached. They have a quarterback that's pretty much a coach on the field, like who
Yeah.
just
That
gets it.
that fourth down scramble that he had for like 6 yards, it was just I'm
Yeah,
like, man, like it's brutal.
yeah,
It's brutal.
yeah. They
So
are right now. They're Thanos, man. They're
yeah,
kind of inevitable. Like,
it's really tough. And they
I,
have so many things that you need to like it's almost like Medusa's head, right? With all the
yeah,
all the snakes coming out. Like you cut one off, two grow back, and like they're loaded with veterans that understand that have not been to this point, some of them. Right? Some of the veterans that they got in the offseason have not been to this point. So they're gonna listen to the other veterans that have been there, like Mahomes, Chris Jones, all these guys, right?
yeah,
And listen to them and what they got to do. Imagine guys like Trent McDuffie,
yeah,
like it's so young and going in for what is it his third Super Bowl?
yeah.
Crazy. I could be wrong about that. It might only be his second, but it's still crazy to think about, like what they're able to do, uh, and
Yeah,
what
they
they
just
have
kind of
going
figure
on.
it out, man.
Yeah,
Like, and honestly, kudos to them. I actually kind of want to ask you a question. Where do you fall on teams with like extended runs like this? Do you love watching it or do you hate watching it? Because for me, I love watching it because like I'm gonna tune in even more because I'm like, maybe this is the time they get knocked off.
So um
I think it's good for the sport when there's somebody that's dominant.
yeah,
Because then it's like,
listen, I
okay,
like both sides of it. And as a fan of one of the teams that was trying to dethrone the inevitable, right? Or the
sure.
Thanos of that time, I really enjoyed it because I got to see some of the best football of my entire life with the Manning and Brady series, right? Like I
And you
really.
eventually got that though,
Yeah,
too. That's the thing.
and
You guys
eventually
knocked us off
did.
eventually
Yeah,
for six.
eventually did, and that was very difficult to do, and we got very close sometimes. Maybe not as close as Josh Allen's getting in these games, but it was very very close, and it would come down to a third down, like Wes Welker dropping a pass, or Bob Sanders hitting Wes Welker on the third down line, and them not them choosing to go for it on 4th and 1 or not go
Yeah.
for it, right? Like it's just all of those, you just remember those times so much. But I also do like seeing the other side of it and the dominance of it, and I think I've really enjoyed the Chiefs, but there's been times this year that I've been like, okay, I'm ready to see someone else win it. Detroit, I was happy to see them kind of go into the playoffs, but they weren't able to get it done. And
Yeah.
going into the Super Bowl, I think it's an epic matchup of just what we experienced 2 years ago. I hope it's going to be a
Yeah.
great game again. I really do.
If Kansas City wins, I'm not mad at it because like I get to
Yeah,
watch history. And
yeah,
like honestly, if you can win three straight Super Bowls, good on you. Like that requires a lot of talent,
a lot
and
of
that does require
longevity.
a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
Like I know the Patriots, the six Super Bowls they won in those seasons at every point required a little bit of luck,
yeah,
a little bit of like I need a break to go my way.
yeah.
Like
And
yeah,
one thing that I will say too is it's very different. I think this goes with all sports. It's very different watching the championship game without your team in it.
oh yeah,
Because you can just watch it and enjoy it for what it is.
it's so nice.
Yeah,
It's so
it
nice.
really is. Like you want your team to be there really bad, but you don't want the stress of watching that. Dude, I remember watching Manning when he played for the Broncos against that Seahawks team in the Super Bowl, and that was torture to watch, man.
Oh yeah.
It was torture, man. I couldn't believe from literally the first snap. It was awful. And I just kept thinking like, okay, they're gonna be able to get it together, and they just never were able to. They got crushed that Super Bowl. It was bad.
Watching 20 years of playoff football of the Patriots has at least knocked off 5 years of my life.
Yeah,
Easy. And that's okay. Like,
that's
and
crazy.
another five with the Red Sox. Yes, that's 10. Well, all right. We're not doing great.
Imagine if you were a
I don't think,
Yankees fan.
oh, well, if I was a Yankees fan, I would have just offed myself already and just called it a day. Woof. Woof.
Oh man.
Anybody that's a Yankees fan, no thank you. No thank you. I'm looking at you, Uncle Roger. I'm looking at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Woof.
that's oh man. He's gonna have something to say in the comments, we know.
Good.
All right. So before we break down the Super Bowl, I just wanted a few tidbits we wanted to mention. Free agency is apparently getting announced even before it
Yeah,
started.
let's
But
go.
Miles Garrett wrote a very well written letter to the city of
Yeah.
Cleveland, but basically to ownership requesting a trade. And I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that, where you think he might be able to be traded, and what where do you see him as a destination spot for him?
I love that for him. Like honestly, like here's the thing: is everybody in the league loves Miles Garrett so much that like
Except Mason
everybody's like,
Rudolph.
yeah, well, Mason Rudolph can go fuck himself.
Yeah.
Uh Miles Garrett, like everybody loves him. So like everybody's like, that's why you're not going to see any backlash on this because people are like, yeah, no, he plays for Cleveland and he's in the prime of his career. And he wants to win, and that's not going to happen in Cleveland, and he knows that. And
Yeah.
like, and good for him. I'll tell you what, the one place I want to see him go, and I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, I don't think it's going to happen. But just picture a world for a minute. We're on the defensive line. On one end is Miles Garrett, and the other is Aiden Hutchinson. All right, just picture that for a moment, and just let that sit.
I'll tell you like that.
Yeah.
That
Well, I
would
didn't
be.
tell you earlier. I was like, I wanted to see the look on your face.
I could.
Yeah.
I would love that. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love that. It would remind me kind of like the Freeney and Mathis days, different style rushers, but
Sure.
yeah, it would be really really cool to see that. One destination I do not want to see him go to is Dallas, and I don't think Dallas has the cap space to be able to do it. But I know there's people that have kind of been chirping like, "Oh, imagine him and Micah Parsons." It's like you guys can't figure out how to not pay a quarterback 75 million who can't stay healthy. Like it's
Jerry Jones wouldn't pay like $30 million for Derrick Henry.
yeah.
Like, do you think he's going to trade at least two first round picks for Miles Garrett? There's no way.
Yeah, I'll tell you, maybe, and this might excite you, but there's two big things that I could see happening this offseason with your new coach up in New England. The first is
Don't tease me like this. Do
I
not tease me
I
like
wouldn't
this.
be shocked if these two guys are Patriots next year, and I don't know how they're going to be able to do it. I hope they don't leverage the future to do it. But if you ended up with Miles Garrett and AJ Brown on your team next year, I would not be
Don't
surprised.
fucking do this to me, man.
I'm,
Don't do
I'm
this to
telling you,
me.
man. I'm telling you, man.
Damn it. Don't.
Vrabel's a
Look,
smart guy.
I just want to exist this offseason where I know we have a lot of cap space. We can be in the mix for some guys. We're gonna try to draft well again. Like you know where else I wouldn't mind seeing him go?
Where?
I wouldn't mind seeing him go to the Chargers. Again, just hear me out. A Bosa on one end, Miles Garrett on the other.
Do you think San
Good luck.
Francisco has the cap space to do it? I mean,
No, I don't know because I feel like the Bills gonna come due, and they still have to play Brock Purdy.
yeah, they do. I don't
Yeah.
know, man. Somehow, some way, it's inevitable. Just like Thanos, Howie Roseman's going to figure out how to get him on his squad. I don't.
It,
I know they
if
can't, but
if I'm Cleveland and I see his number come up, just don't answer the phone.
yeah, don't answer the phone. You know you're going to get hosed. You'll end up giving him out for a third-round pick, and it's like,
You know what Cleveland will do? Cleveland will give up a first round pick and Miles Garrett to Philly.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Howie
they
Roseman
would.
will Jedi mind trick him into giving them first round picks.
Yeah, they
Like,
would. Yeah, definitely would. The other one, so that's kind of exciting, but the other one that
yeah,
kind of came about was Cooper Cup, and this one a little bit sad to see, but he was informed by the team that they're looking to trade him, and I think they have to, right? Like they know what they have with Puka Nakua. It's been awesome watching both of them on the field at the same time, but Cup's due to make a lot of money this year, and he seemed healthy towards the end of last season, but he does not seem the same as he was when he was a Triple Crown winner. I think they're ready to move on from him, which is sad because I really like him as a player, man. He is just
yeah.
he's everything you want in a player. He really is.
Which
Super
it
tough
doesn't make
guy.
sense to me. Like, just keep both of them. Like,
Yeah,
people would kill to have two receivers like that.
as long as Stafford's there, I don't see why they're trying to do it, but I don't think they have the money to be able to do it, and I think that's why they got to move on from him.
Which is bonkers
Yeah, and
that they
there's
don't have the money for that.
to be
That's
honest,
bonkers.
yeah, there's a lot of teams in the league that could really benefit from his services. So, we will see where he ends up. But one last thing I want to discuss, and this needs to be addressed, because this one just had me heated.
Yeah.
So ESPN went through a series of firings over the last year, over 2024, where they got rid of a lot of talented individuals that had been there quite a long time. And so whenever anything like that happens, you assume as like a naive person, right, from the outside that like they're keeping the best people. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they're keeping people that they are getting rid of people they can no longer afford. And so many of them have moved on to podcasts and other networks and stuff as well, which very, very happy for them. But ESPN decided to keep some people that just do not seem to know what they're doing when it comes to the profession. And again, you could take that from an amateur podcaster, but I take stuff at face value. Like what I see and what I hear, I judge it based off of that. So they have this one guy, former player, Chris Canty,
Yeah.
and he had one of the most ridiculous takes that I heard ever the other day, where he talked about Joe Burrow not being an elite quarterback. And I don't want to know more.
You have such okay. Disclaimer before we go. Like, I love Joe Burrow, great quarterback,
Yeah.
but like, if Joe Burrow was said to you tomorrow, "Hey, dump Merve, your wife, and marry me," you would. You
We
would.
talk
You
about
love Joe
it.
Burrow.
We would talk about it.
You love Joe Burrow, and you have a soft spot for him. You do,
Yeah, we
and
would
that's
talk
okay.
about
Like,
it, right?
I need you as your friend. I just need you to know that.
I'm not turning red right now. So,
Yeah, no, that's okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay.
So listen,
Hey,
Joe would be he's ice cold, so he'd give me a deal I couldn't refuse, and
sure,
that
yeah,
would be difficult to deal with. But I think I do have a bias when it comes to him because I watch the way he plays. I want to see him succeed. I've seen him have a great amount of success in the NFL, and I want to see him get that Super Bowl ring because I think he deserves it, right? And
sure,
again, what does that mean, right? Thinking someone deserves you don't deserve it unless you earn it, right? But with that being said, I think that he eventually is going to make it to the dance and eventually is going to get another shot at winning a Super Bowl. He was very close the first time, and I think he's going to be have another shot to be able to get back and prove that he can do it. Now, Canty's take was that Burrow wasn't elite, but he's considering guys like Josh Allen and Lamar elite. Now, listen, I'm not. This isn't a bash Allen and bash Lamar segment. It's really not. But neither of them have been to a Super Bowl. And what they
yeah,
did this year, and this is just my opinion. Now, granted, Burrow did have Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson on the team, right? So it's not like he's playing with a bunch of nobodies. T. Higgins
and
is
T
out there
Higgins.
too. Yeah, he's got good players on this team. But I don't think they had the full supporting cast that guys like Lamar and Josh Allen did. Now, I'm not just talking about the playmakers on offense, but having a great defense that can actually get turnovers as well. Baltimore had
Yeah,
a very good defense this year, arguably the best defense in the league. No, it's
sure.
arguable. Buffalo played very well this year. Now, granted, their defense maybe not have been as elite as Kansas City or Philly or
They
Baltimore,
still
but
had a formidable defense, though.
yeah, they still had a very good defense that you could depend on. The Cincinnati Bengals had no like virtually no defense that they were able to play this year. Their defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, they let him go, and now he's in Indy. Lovely, um,
Yeah,
but
I
but
meant to ask you about that, but yeah,
maybe another time, right?
sure.
Anarumo, yeah, now he's in Indy. Not happy about that, but yeah, but they did not have a great defense this year to be able to really get turnovers for Burrow. And granted, they played well down the stretch, but still weren't able to be able to get into the playoffs. And a lot of that was during the course of the season. Their defense gave up a lot of points in close games, and it really, they weren't
Yeah,
able to get the stops that they needed. Now, my thing of it is here, and like, listen, I just think for anyone saying that he was never elite, I want you to hop off that train, please, for
sure.
a second. Um, anyone that wants to take the opinion that Canty can't talk about players because he wasn't elite when he played, please hop off that train too.
Sure.
That's not something that you can say. You can't use that argument because there are a lot of great analysts in the that cover sports that were never players themselves. That really, like, there was a lot of
Yeah.
guys that are very very good at what they do. Stephen A's a great analyst. He didn't play himself. Okay, so you're saying that a guy can't comment on the game because of that? No, that's not true. But I want to understand his point of view, and I'm having a lot of trouble doing it because I see a guy like Burrow, I see what he's done, and I've seen him lead a team to a Super Bowl. As we had discussed earlier, he's one of two guys to have beaten Mahomes, right? The guy that's going for a three-peat now with the
Yeah.
Chiefs. He didn't just beat Mahomes either. He's beaten him in Arrowhead and other times during the regular season. So
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
that's a
He's
bit confusing.
yeah. Only two quarter. Like Mahomes has lost three times in the
Yeah,
playoffs, and it's been to two quarterbacks: Tom Brady and Joe Burrow.
yeah, yep.
And
So
Burrow and Brady Brady have both beaten him in Arrowhead. So like that's kind of hard to do. Like that's kind of hard to do. Lamar Jackson hasn't beaten Mahomes in the playoffs. Josh Allen hasn't. Yeah, you just go down the list. Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud.
I
The
don't know.
list goes on and on.
We've talked about it before and said you become the best by beating the best, right?
Yeah.
And you get better by beating the best. This is a guy that's done it multiple times, and now like they're saying, oh, okay, all of a sudden he's not elite. Like, well, let's look at the other factors. Like, this is a guy that's been sacked more than many quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 4 years, right? Like, he's had injuries, stuff like that. These other quarterbacks have too. Josh Allen, not so much, but Lamar has been injured as well. I don't know. I really think before people get out and spout this nonsense on a major network like ESPN, I don't know. Maybe his assistant will prep him a little better for that, because that's
Yeah.
that just is. He wasn't bringing many aces to the table when he said that. And I don't know who that really resonates with. Now you want to say like, I mean, this is a guy that was also in the running for the MVP this year with his team, not making the playoffs. Like, he had a fantastic season this year. If that's not considered elite, I don't know what is.
Yeah, right.
It,
Yeah, I agree.
Now, again, I know I'm a bit biased when it comes to Burrow, but I look at that and I try to judge it based on what I see and what he was able to do this year. I didn't see a ton of bad decisions from him, and that's what I feel like as an elite quarterback. You got to be able to put up points. You got to be able to get the ball to your playmakers. You can't turn the ball over, and you got to make good decisions. And I think he is a guy that is able to do all of those things. But I don't know. It's very interesting to see that stuff. So, anything else you wanted to mention about that? I know I
just
went
want
on
to
a
say
hater there for it.
no. Two things. One, ESPN has very much just kind of become like the place where like, and then I think that's like sports journalism in general right now is just like, hey, I have some really hot spicy takes that like I'm just saying shit to say shit.
Yeah.
That being said, I think like to understand how good Burrow is, I think you have to understand how good Mahomes is. And the fact that Mahomes has lost twice in the playoffs at home in 6 years is impressive. It's been 3 years since the Chiefs have lost at home in the playoffs.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
If that doesn't explain home field advantage, I don't know what does.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Burrow to me is definitely in that category. And I'm gonna say a thing as well. I think guys like Josh Allen and Lamar are elite quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I do. Like
I'm not disputing that. Yeah. I think they are
yeah,
as well.
like I think this top starts with Mahomes. And like, but Burrow's in that next category with like Lamar, with Josh Allen, with guys like that. Like, I think he might be a step above him just because, like, he's done it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, he was one drive away from winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Honestly, he was Aaron Donald away from winning a Super Bowl. Let's be honest.
Yeah. You know what's crazy too, just thinking about Kansas City and stuff too, even going back to the times where New England were able to beat them in Kansas City and stuff, how difficult it is to beat that team there. And even if you're going to beat them, you're not going to beat them by a lot. You'll be lucky to win with a one-score game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But all right. So, interested to see what you guys have to say about those elite quarterback takes. I know we'll get a few people in here talking about that, but okay. Well, let's hop into the Super Bowl here. So we got Kansas City at Philly, and Kansas City it looks like is getting 1.5, with the over under being 48.5. So your initial thoughts on this Super Bowl rematch?
Philly's a better team than they were 2 years ago, and when they played this team. Kansas City somehow is kind of worse. That being said, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I say this all the time, especially in baseball. To be the champs, you got to beat the champs, and until you can beat the champs, I'm not picking against them because like that's just foolish.
Yeah, it is.
So, especially when it's Mahomes in the playoffs.
Yeah, like I've seen all these statistics on like, oh, if he's got to throw the ball more than 35 or 36 times and stuff, and it's like,
Doesn't matter.
do you really want this guy throwing the ball more than 36 times against your defense?
Sure.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't know if that's something I want, right? Like it's
Yeah.
I know Vic Fangio doesn't want that. Not at all.
Yeah.
Uh but what do you think Kansas City needs to do to win?
They got to keep the Philly offense off the field because like what makes Philly so good is that they just wear you down run after run after run and they throw different guys at you and they like if you look at the time of possession they're usually holding the ball for like 35-38 minutes a game.
Yeah.
You gotta like you can't like I weirdly think Kansas City does this thing a lot of times where they get like quick scores. I almost think you can't do that with this team with Philly.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Philly will just do a rip off a 15 play drive just for funsies. Like,
Yeah.
um, that being said, like I am interested to see Chris Jones trying to tackle Saquon Barkley. Boy,
Mm,
am I interested in that.
yeah.
Like, because like respectfully, it's gonna have to be guys like Chris Jones that are gonna have to be in the backfield immediately
Yeah.
to 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 slow down Philly's run game.
Yeah, a guy that squats over 600 pounds or 700, however
Yeah,
much he squats. Yeah.
yeah, he's gonna have to be in the backfield and be a nuisance.
He's tough
And,
to take down.
and the thing is like Philly's line is like banged up enough. Their center situation's really weird right now.
Yeah.
Uh, like Dickerson was hurt, and like Jurgens was hurt too. Like they keep swapping between them, and like
Yeah, did you
it's
see them limping and stuff? Like it was almost painful to watch them like limping up and down the field, but then like they break the huddle and they're jogging to the line. It's like, oh man, they're in a
and
ton
like
of pain.
Washington's D line, respectfully, you can kind of get away with that. Not KC's D line,
No,
not Chris Jones. Like
no.
if Chris Jones knows you're hurt, he's Chris Jones is just gonna line up over center, and I would too. Fuck it, like
Yeah, Karloftis is really good too, and like
yeah,
that's going to create a lot of man, a lot of pain for them. My big thing, like for Kansas City to win, I think they got to stop Saquon. No team's been able to do it so far.
not well. Like they
No,
do it spurts, but like Saquon always gets his. Like he'll
think about
get
it,
you.
man. If he rips one, it's really tough to beat. It really is.
Yeah,
If Kansas City is able to find a way to get up in the game, I'm not going to say it neutralizes Barkley because I still think they have the screen game that they can go to, which isn't Jalen Hurts' forte. But I think if he can get Saquon the ball in space, that they have a chance to catch up doing that. But I also think they need to pressure Jalen Hurts. Like they've got two very big things to do. They got a lot of playmakers on this team. Yeah, Kansas City's got a good secondary and stuff, but Devonta Smith, former Heisman winner, like you know, very
yeah.
good receiver, and then AJ Brown too, right? Like it's, I mean, this offense is loaded. Not only their offensive line, but like I'm interested to see the matchup between Karloftis and Jordan Malata because
Yeah, Jordan
that's
Milano's a beast.
he is.
That man
How
mauls
come?
people
Why
on the
don't
line.
they let him run the ball? He used to run the ball in rugby, and he was an animal, man.
I think they don't want him to get hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was hurting a lot of people when he was running the ball. I'd love
Sure.
to see him do it. But yeah, for Kansas City to win, I think that's what they got to do. I know Mahomes is going to protect the ball, even if they make mistakes and stuff. They're they can find a way to creep back in the game. But this is the crazy thing. Like they can go like sputtering the entire game, and then all of a sudden, 2 minutes to go, they put together that one drive and end up putting up a touchdown uh, when they need it.
Yeah.
So now, conversely, we're going to talk about Philly for a second. Just what do you think they need to do to win?
Uh, run for 200 yards on offense. Run for 200 yards on the ground. Like it's pretty simple. Like what has worked for them this year? Saquon getting the ball 20 to 25 carries, him
Yeah,
running for about a buck 50, buck 60. Um, and just controlling the clock and limiting the amount of Mahomes possessions. And I think what has worked against Mahomes in the playoffs, the few times they have lost in the playoffs, is like you just hitting Mahomes over and over again. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the key with him. Remember that Super Bowl they lost at Tampa, where the Tampa D line was just teeing off on him,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
Casey's offensive line like is fine, but it's not anything to write home about. And like respectfully, Philly's got a D line that just brings dudes. Like, and the thing is they have enough dudes that like they can just keep cycling them in.
Yeah.
Like
They keep
they're
those
just gonna
guys
keep
really
throwing it
rested. Though Jalen Carter, I think there was stats saying that he's played more than any defensive lineman in football all year.
because he's been an animal. He's been a
Yeah.
beast in these playoffs.
Yeah. He's
Like
he's
he's
just
just
been really good.
every other play he's either making a sack or he's just in the backfield for a tackle for loss. And you're like, oh, okay, I don't.
He's a very instinctive player.
Yeah,
It's crazy. And Jordan Davis is just a monster man child.
yeah.
Um,
But
I
I think I think that they have to like because I think getting forcing Casey into turnovers, I think with Mahomes is hard.
yeah.
But I think if you keep hitting him, he's going to start getting a little skittish, and I think that's where you can get him.
Yeah,
Like
for
that being
me,
said,
yeah.
that's easier said than done.
It definitely is. But for me, when it comes to Philly winning the game, I think they need to win every situation, and that's a very difficult thing to do. There's teams that have been
Oh,
able to win a lot of them, but not every situation, and they're going to need to do that and put together their best football game of the season to beat the Chiefs. They're really going to have to do it.
yeah, teams play well against them for like 55 minutes,
Yep.
and that's great. But like, it's yeah,
I read something interesting. Like Jalen Hurts was talking about like this being his second time. Like he felt like he didn't deserve it the first time that he was here, which I think was very telling because like he played outstanding the first time in the Super Bowl. Like he was not the reason they lost. He actually statistically outplayed Mahomes in the Super
yeah.
Bowl, but they still lost that game. And it brings to the question like I feel like I know where you're going to lean with this, but who do you think has the advantage at quarterback?
Chiefs, like respectfully, like for all that Jalen Hurts can do and he does well, the Chiefs, like
Well,
Mahomes,
this is the
oh,
interesting thing about both teams, right?
yeah,
And I feel like we got to that as we got to the divisional rounds, but all of those teams can play four down football on
mm-hmm.
offense. Like we're moving away from like, oh, it's third down, let's punt. They're like, no,
Yeah,
you're gonna have to stop. You may be able to stop us on three downs. You're not gonna be able to stop us on a fourth. And I
yeah,
love that style of football. I think it's incredible to be able to watch that.
yeah.
And Mahomes goes into that as well, right? Like he showed with the 6 yard sneak on fourth down where he rolled out and then just ran for 6 yards. It's like, man, like they know how to do it too.
Yeah, this is why I will take Mahomes over any other quarterback in the league.
Hmm.
You got a minute 30 left, and you need to drive the length of the field for a touchdown. You just kind of assume he's going to get it, and you're more shocked when he doesn't do it. And that
Right.
was Brady. That was Brady. Like
Yeah.
you were more shocked. You remember the times it didn't happen because it didn't happen often,
Right.
and that's kind of Mahomes. Like when they were trying to kill the clock at the end of that Buffalo game, I was like, oh no, they're going to do it. Like
Yeah.
you're like maybe they won't, and like you're kind of on the edge of your seat, but like you kind of know, like they're gonna do it, and they did.
It was crazy because I was looking at the time as it was ticking down in that game, and I was thinking to myself, like, no, there's enough time. Buffalo can get a couple more possessions. Didn't happen.
No,
Didn't happen. They
nope.
got one more, and that was it. So
Yeah, Kansas City made sure, like you know what, you were gonna limit the amount of time you get the ball. So
yeah. Moving on to running back. Who do you think has the advantage?
Eagles,
Yeah. Barkley is
like
just a 2,000 yard rusher, right? Like it's
here's the stat you need to know. Philly's worst game in the playoffs rushing. They only had 169 yards on the ground.
yeah.
That's all you need to know.
I mean that's not even the big one for me. I the stat that I looked at, and this is because I more so than the postseason because I know how special he was during the regular season, but 5.8 yards per carry
Mm-hmm.
on the season. And granted, he had a lot of runs over 20 yards or deemed long runs, burst runs and stuff, but I don't know if they can't control that because he's a guy that's fast enough and strong enough that he can take off and go for 15 or 20 easy.
Yeah.
If not, take it to the house. Like
Oh yeah.
he's, and they're playing in New Orleans. So it's not like they have to worry about weather or anything like that. It's going to be
Yeah,
plenty
they're
warm
inside.
enough. Yeah, warm enough in that building. He can
Yep.
run all day if he needs to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's definitely Saquon for me. What about wide receiver?
Not even close. It's respectfully, it's Philly.
Yeah, I think Philly wins
Not
there
even
again.
close.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
listen, all respect to DeAndre Hopkins. Rasheed Rice isn't there right now with him being banged up. Hollywood Brown, you know,
Xavier Worthy. Juju
yeah.
Smith.
Yeah, listen, like they're guys. Don't get me wrong, and like guys, I would definitely like to have on my team. But when it comes to AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, like those guys are dogs. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Tight end advantage. I'm kind of curious what you're gonna say on this.
Yeah. If we were judging this based on the regular season, I would say Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But and like Kelsey kind of wasn't really a factor in the Buffalo game,
Mm-hmm.
but the Houston game, he's a big reason they won. And
Yeah.
like he's always kind of like the X factor for a lot of what Kansas City does well. Um, I think I got to take Kansas City here, and I just because I and this is no disrespect to Dallas Goddard, who's a really good tight end. I've just watched Kelsey do it in the playoffs time and time and
Yep.
time again.
There's something to be said for guys that get it done consistently in the playoffs, and
Yeah,
yeah, Kelsey is that dude. He just
and
is.
the thing is like other teams know that Kelsey's going to get the ball, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we watched it last year, right? Like he really was
Yeah,
pedestrian during the regular season, and then all of a sudden, come the playoffs, it's like, oh, this guy's scoring multiple touchdowns each game, and like, it's
yeah,
he's
yeah. He's
no,
not a guy you're drafting in fantasy anymore, really.
no. But
But
when
like,
when you see what he has with Mahomes, you know, come playoff time, like he trusts him, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, definitely Kelsey there. Offensive line,
uh, boy, I'm going to say Philly, even though they're kind of banged up.
yeah, I think so
Yeah,
too.
Philly has some monsters on the line.
Yeah, they really do.
Monsters. Like,
They could
yeah,
play some.
Malata, Jordan, Dickerson, Jurgens, like they're just monsters on the line.
Mhm.
Like dudes
Even
that you're just like, cool, I don't want to face and because they run the ball so well, they're all really good run blockers and they're just gonna smash you.
I mean,
Like,
they've got the bookends, right, with Mylota and Lane Johnson, who are just they're both
yeah,
just incredible. But what they've gotten, the play they've gotten this year out of Makai Becton
yeah,
has been really really good at guard. And you know, I'm curious like how, I mean, 6'7", 363 pounds for a guy that can pull and run and clear lanes for Saquon. That's a big dude. That's a
yeah.
big dude. So, yeah, I'm definitely going Philly with line advantage on that. And that's nothing against Kansas City. I mean, listen, Joe Tooney's doing what he can there. Oh, he was a former Patriot guy, wasn't he?
Sure was. Yep.
Yeah. Creed Humphrey, he's obviously really really good there. Juwan Taylor, I'm not high on. You saw Sumataya get benched this year. You also saw DJ Humphreys get benched this year. Like it's just these are guys that have come in that they just weren't able to get the most out of what they needed. But uh, who knows? Who knows on any game, right? Like any day that I know Andy Reid's in there telling them exactly what they need to know to prepare them as best as they can for this defensive line of Phillies. And these
Yeah.
are going to be this is, I know they always say, okay, the game's won in the trenches. This is going to be a game to watch that. Who is pushing who around? Who's able to get after the quarterback? Who's able to protect their quarterback? That's what it's going to be. Um, which brings us to defensive line. Who's got the advantage there?
Philly has more guys, and that's great. And they depth wise, like they're just nuts. That being said, they don't have a guy like Chris Jones that you have to plan an entire game plan around.
Right. Right.
So to me, it's the Chiefs.
Yeah. So listen, I really am a fan of Karloftis, and Chris Jones is just he's got a special place in my heart. He really does. But ever since he was drafted, and this is a guy that I wish one of like I wish Indy had gone after this guy because I remember when the Colts ended up signing Anthony McFarland, who had played in Tampa Bay for a while, and what that did, they signed him one year, and then I think they signed Corey Simon, who played for for the Eagles for a bit. And when they brought them in, it changed things. Now Corey Simon, I don't think was able to stay healthy as long as they wanted, but part of Indy's Super Bowl run was with McFarland on that defensive line. And you saw what having a guy like that does for your team. Jordan
Yeah.
Davis is one of those guys that, okay, you look at his stats and he doesn't have a ton of quarterback sacks and stuff like that, but what this guy does for this team on defense is incredible. It doesn't show up on a stat sheet. What he's able to do for Jalen Carter and guys like Nolan Smith, I mean, it's granted, basically like Georgia, University of Georgia at Philadelphia, but a
Pretty
lot
much,
of
yeah.
yeah, a lot of these guys like N'Kobe Dean's not going to be there, but he was able to benefit a lot this year. Nolan Smith was able to benefit a lot this year. Jalen Carter benefited a lot from him. Zach Bond had an excellent season because of what Jordan Davis was doing up front. Like, I don't know if you remember Jordan Davis from the combine, but this was the
Yeah.
dude that was booking it, and they were like, "We've never seen a big man run that fast."
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy that was a hot prospect, and he's done very well for them this year. I'm gonna lean Philly on this just because of that. Do I think
Sure.
Kansas City has? I think it's very close, man. Very close. And Chris
Yeah,
Jones, I don't want to.
you could flip a coin.
Yeah,
To be
I don't
honest
want
with
to.
you.
I don't want to pick against Kansas City, but I just with that, I like the defensive line for Philly. I really do, and I think they get great practice every single week playing against their offensive line. They're playing against some of the best. It just steel sharpens steel, man. It really does.
Yeah.
Um, uh, okay, so let's move on to the linebackers. Who do you think has the advantage here?
Honestly, if N'Kobe Dean didn't get hurt, this would have been the Eagles, and this would have been the Eagles going away.
Mm-hmm.
Him getting hurt really kind of changed things. They still have a good linebacking core. I'm going to lead slight edge to KC though for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I listen.
This is another one that's kind of like flipping a coin. Like,
Yeah. Kansas City, listen, I feel the same way. I was a big N'Kobe Dean fan. Really sad to see him go down. I think it's really tough, man.
yeah,
I think it's really, really tough. I'll go Kansas City, but just know that it's very tough. The same difficulty I have with selecting defensive line, I feel the same way about linebackers. And if you ask me tomorrow, I could say Philly. Because I mean they got a lot of dudes on this defense that are very, very good. Trotter Jr.'s a stud, man. Like he's gonna
yeah.
be awesome to watch. Josh Sweat, like he's been good for them this year. I don't know, man. Let's go Kansas City. All right. Defensive backfield. Who do you have?
I'm going to go Philadelphia. I'm going to
Yeah.
go Philly here.
Okay.
Like, respectfully, like Jalen Watson's good, and like when Jalen you know what I mean? Like he's good, but like the dudes that Philly's throwing out there, like, yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's the matchup I look forward to the most. Is like, okay, these receivers for Kansas City aren't like the best, but I'd really want to see what this looks like with Xavier Worthy being covered by a CJ Gardner Johnson. And like, you know
Who's
what
a
I mean?
ball
Like,
hawk, dude. He's a
yeah.
ball hawk, man. This guy just loves to come up with picks. He really does.
Or like, you know, Reed Blankenship, like just hitting a dude. Like,
Yeah, for me, I'm very excited to see how these rookies play on the big stage. They've
Yeah.
done very well over the latter part of the season with Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but Cooper DeJean's a dude, man, and he makes me feel good because there's not a lot of white guys that play in the secondary, and he is one of them, man.
yeah.
So for him to do some of the things that he's doing, I'm very, very happy to see that. It makes me feel very good. And I'm really hoping I'm obviously leaning Philly when it comes to the secondary, but I'm really just hoping to see a nice chess match between the receivers on Kansas City and the secondary of Philly because they're going to need to be able to figure out ways to get open.
Yeah.
So Mahomes can deliver the ball. But the last few ones that we've got here, kicker and special teams. How are you feeling about this?
I kind of wish we could break this down. Honestly, this kind of is a wash, and I'm gonna say anything because like Jake Elliott seems like he loves missing extra points. He
Yeah.
loves doing that for some reason. Um, but that
Uh,
being said, Harrison Bucker is coming back from a leg injury, and
yep.
he's still not 100%. Both punters for both teams are really good.
Yes.
Both have good special teams returners.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna take Kansas City just because I mean Bucker has had some really big kicks in the playoffs and in the regular season.
He has,
I
and like when you have that experience, and no offense to Jake Elliott, he actually was better on extra points this year than Harrison Bucker, but I think that's part of the reason Bucker went on IR, was because he was missing a few of those. He was hurt, he rested
yeah,
up, now he's back and stuff. But I I think that Butker has been in more high profile situations to be able to land those kicks, and I really think when it comes down to it, he knows how to be able to hit those.
my favorite stat from Kansas City this year. This is how good their special teams are.
Yeah,
Three different kickers hit game-winning field goals for Kansas City this year.
yeah, that's impressive, man. That's
Like
that's impressive.
that's just
Uh,
good coaching at that point.
it
Like,
really is. Well, I'm
yeah,
so glad you mentioned that about coaching because who do you think gets the advantage with coaching?
Kansas City, and that's not even close.
Yeah,
I think like at least defensive coordinator wise, like it's Spags, but like Vic Fangio is a good defensive
yeah,
coordinator. But respectfully, if we're just talking about head coaches,
it's got to be Reed.
Reed's running laps around Sirianni,
So
like
this,
running laps.
yeah, I agree with you, and I love Andy Reid. He reminds me of my dad a bit, but it's funny when you think about it, with Andy Reid in particular. But do you how long do you think it's going to take? I mean, it could be during the game that it happens too, but how long do you think it's going to take of Philly not converting a fourth down or Philly possibly losing the game before there's a fan that tweets out, let's get rid of Sirianni?
Oh, over under, I would say the first time they go 3-and-out, which is going to be the first quarter because they can't fucking do anything in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I know a couple Philly fans in my life that I'll text and be like, "Hey, how you feel about Sirianni?" Just to just to troll him, just to
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, I
because
guarantee there's probably some Philly fans wearing a Fire Sirianni t-shirt underneath their jersey on the way to the stadium.
yeah,
So, we'll see
golly,
we'll see what happens with that. But
yeah.
all right, well, I guess now that we've broken down the Super Bowl, and what we think is going to happen, who do you have winning?
Uh, I know that I've just laid out a pretty good case for Philly, and like they're pretty much better in a lot of positions.
Yeah,
To be the champs, you got to beat the champs, and you
sure
can't.
do.
I'm not picking against the champs.
Yep.
So Kansas City 31-28 over Philly.
31-28. My goodness,
Yeah,
we were actually pretty close to
yeah.
score. I picked Kansas City 27, Philly 24.
And
Um,
I'm gonna go a little bit further. I'm telling you now that it's gonna be Mahomes just driving down the field to win it. To win it,
wow.
like like
Touchdown to win it or field goal
yeah,
to
like
win
a
it.
touchdown. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you heard it here first.
And as just kind of like a big like fuck you, like hey, at least because here's my thing: if Mahomes wins this Super Bowl, the conversation needs to start being had that like Mahomes is on Brady's level. I just need to say that. Like, sure, he doesn't have the rings, but like we at least need to start talking about it. He's at least moved into the neighborhood and they're on the same street.
Yeah, I think they're kind of in a room on their own at that point. Like
Yep.
in the same cul-de-sac or kind of like maybe
It's
Mahomes is
it's
at the
it's a
beginning.
cul-de-sac and there's only two houses at that point. And it's
Yeah.
it's those two. Yeah.
Yeah. Um
So
yeah, very interesting. I can't wait to break down the Super Bowl. I can't believe we're just a few days away from this too. Um
it also makes me a little sad though, because this is the last of football.
it
This
really
is it.
is. Yeah. I
Like,
was saying that to my wife. Like it's a little frustrating to see that yeah, this is going to be the end for at
yeah.
least a while. But baseball starts up soon. So,
Pitchers and
um,
catchers report 10 days, baby.
yeah, and then we can watch
Sox
the
that Trump
Dodgers win
gave the
another
other
World Series.
It's not going to happen. That's really kind of you. Sox had truck day the other day, which is obviously a great day of the year for me where they pack up everything
Hmm.
and go down to Fort Myers. So yeah, baseball season's coming, and I am thrilled.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say about the Super Bowl before we wrap up?
No, no. I told you this earlier before we recorded, and I'm just gonna say a thing. I love watching the Super Bowl with people. I do, but like I'm gonna say a thing. Maybe we could talk like 20% less during the game.
Yeah,
That's what because I
please.
really enjoy watching the game, and I like watching the game to like learn things.
Hmm.
And usually a Super Bowl is with like a party with with people that aren't watching all the time. And so like for me, what I do is like inevitably like I'll go to somebody's house, watch the game. People will talk during like most of it. And I'm like, but I record the game so I can go home after and watch it in peace. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I know I'm going to be staying up to be able to watch it, and I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Uh, it's going to
You
be
should try to take the next day off, man.
yeah. They don't really support that here, so
Oh
I
man.
I'm feeling a little
Yeah.
sick. So
Mr. Shane, you're sick.
very convenient. So
Yeah.
anyhow, but listen, I think that wraps up for today. Glad to be
Yeah.
back and stuff, and we got number 70 done, man. Cruising. That means
Yeah.
later this year we will probably have our 100th episode, which will
We're
be
firmly in retirement, you know?
yeah, we are. We
Yeah.
are. But listen, I love you, brother, and we will see you again soon.
All right. I love you, man. It's good to have you back.
All
Peace.
right. Peace.